Salutations, my friends, and thank you for tuning in to a very special edition of Factions of Freedom. That's right, Factions of Freedom, not Fellowship of Freedom. We've actually had a guest on the main transmission. I wanted to use this time to utilize what's going on within alternative media. We've seen a devastating blow happen to us, to independent media, the anti-media, as well as the Free Thought Project, and hundreds of other alternative media pages have been taken down in Facebook's latest censorship sweep. And we have had the honor of having Carrie Wedler of the Anti-Media on to explain these things and more. And with that being said, let's start the show.
So for editing's sake, what I'll do is we'll just start the conversation, and I'll go back through and I'll edit it into a more legible form.
That sounds good. Whatever works best.
So I guess for editing's sake, I'll go ahead and clap my hands right here and just say thank you, Carrie, for being able to spend some important time with us. I know you're a very busy woman. You're not only busy with all the work that you do, but you've recently been, I don't want to say a victim of this censorship, but you and your team, the anti-media team, you guys have been caught up in some of this algorithmic adversity, some of the unleashing of Facebook. So I definitely want to thank you for spending time with us and talking about this matter. Thank you for coming on.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me on, especially, you know, my public page for Carrie Wedler was not taken down last week. And I find myself sort of like starting to think maybe I should self-censor, you know, like what's safe to say, what's safe to cover. So I'm really grateful that, you know, people like you are have the courage to have people like me on, because we're sort of like a tainted entity now as far as Facebook's concerned.
I think that's crazy that you're talking about the self-censorship, because I definitely feel like that's part of the threat that they're trying to push out there to people. And of course, you know, I'm trying to be the platform for you guys. You know, if it was not for you and your great team over there, you know, we wouldn't have content to show to our listeners and to our audience. You know, so obviously, I want to try to help you guys in any way possible, and for people to understand what's going on, the amount of work that goes into this, to, you know, providing, you know, daily articles, finding like a quality team of writers, like, you know, that's hard. Like it's crazy to think about how much work goes into putting all this stuff together that just kind of got swept away basically overnight, and people don't understand like the amount of, I don't want to say devastation that feels, but the work and the magnitude of that, you know, and that's your life. Like, I don't know, I definitely sympathize with you guys, and that's why I want to try to help as much as possible.
Thank you. Yeah. And, you know, it's easy when you're just scrolling your feed, you know, you see headlines and you see articles and you kind of take it for granted, myself included, even doing the work I do. You know, I do this every day, and I still, you know, you see these pages with these huge followings and you don't realize how much effort goes into building that up and reaching people. And I know on the editorial end for me, like you said, like finding quality writers, people who you can trust to really report factually and that you can work with and that you like and that you share values with. You know, we've been working on this a long time. I came on to Anti-Media in 2014, and our founder, Nick Burnaby, had started the page about, I don't know, a year or two earlier. He made a meme in 2012 that went viral about the election, and that's how it all started. And I came on when we were at 200-something thousand likes, and we made it to 2.1 million, and that's where we were when we were removed. So I'm still hopeful we'll get it back. But I also have to be prepared that may not happen. You know, I have to emotionally brace myself, because it is, you know, I've been doing this every day for 4 years now, over 4 years. And it's something I'm so grateful for, because with Anti-Media, we've had the freedom to say what we want. And of course, to have editorial standards. And that's sort of where I came in. But, you know, and of course, all of our writers and everybody I work with. But it's weird to think that it just maybe, you know, disappeared, goodbye, you're not, it's over. And, you know, we can have a whole conversation about it being a private platform, and I would love to get into that as well, but that may be for later in our conversation, because I think maybe now we're just going over the basics of what happened.
Yeah. Well, I think, you know, that's people's default thing to say, is that it's a private platform, and I would definitely like to get into that later on. But, you know, you're literally trying to tell people, you know, that do kind of take it for granted that like an alternative voice is going to be there, that there's going to be an organization of people who are trying to help, you know, not corral your thoughts, but change your thoughts, you know, influence your thoughts, question what you think of as normal. That's like the whole point behind doing this. That's why like people don't really get the amount of work and the responsibility that comes with it. You know, you say time and time again, being able to report on factual stuff, making sure it is on point. It's not fake news. Making sure that it actually has links and has reference, like it's actually real news. And I think that's what scares people, because you're able to organize over a core base of values that basically enrich people's lives. And so whenever you have like a society like this that's just basically headed towards automation, any kind of dissenting or alternative opinions, you know, that's scary to people. And so personally, I got to say, you know, congratulations for all that you guys have been able to accomplish, because, you know, this is just, what do you think is going to happen next, if you don't mind me asking? Like, what not only for you at the Anti-Media, but what do you think will happen as far as the future of social media and alternative media?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's a double-edged sword, because I think on one hand, things like this encourage the community that's already, you know, with us to seek out other options. You know, seeking out decentralized platforms like Minds or Steemit, or I've been learning about one called MeWe. I don't know much about it, so I don't want to speak on it, but there are a lot of other options. So on that front, I think it's really cool. You know, if there is a plus side to this, it's that it's really pushing people to take action as opposed to just, you know, saying things, you know, which is what we do. Essentially, we're saying things, we're reporting things, but and this is what I've been saying in a lot of interviews, is like, yes, these options are really important, and we really do have to take action. But at the same time, the people we're trying to reach are on these major platforms. They're not ready to move over to Minds. They're not ready to go to Steemit. That's not something they're plugged into at all. So it has been really important for us to be present on these really mainstream platforms. And we were doing really well on them. Of course, our algorithms were, well, I can't say with certainty this is what happened, but let's say our reach has been way down the last year plus, especially since the election, and it's only gotten worse. But we still were able to reach people, and now it's gone. And as far as the future, I think, you know, it's tricky right now, because they're saying they didn't take down our pages because of content, and to an extent that's somewhat believable to me, because they took down a bunch of varying viewpoints. So they had some pro-Trump pages they took down, according to what I read in the LA Times, you know, which copy and pasted from their press release, I think. But they took down at least one left-wing site that I know of, and then they took down pages like ours. So there is a wide sampling of content. So it would be irresponsible of me to sit here and say, like, it's because of what we're saying. It's because, you know, I don't know. They're saying it's the practices on the page, all of which we don't do. So they're saying we're misleading people through spamming and like using fake accounts or fake profiles. We don't do that. So we're hoping, and I want to give them the benefit of the doubt here. We're hoping that we've submitted an appeal. We're hoping that once they go through it and they look at our page and they look at who admins it and they see our content, that they will give us the page back. And I also want to add on that I believe it was over the summer, they appointed the Anti-Media's page. This was on Facebook. They appointed us a representative, like someone who works at Facebook, who was going to be sort of like our liaison or our ally to help us like with our page and help us facilitate the page better. And last month they gave us free advertising credit to promote our content. So that's sort of like an implicit endorsement of what we're putting out there. So if it is about the content, one, they're not saying it, and two, they already endorsed our content. So yeah, maybe low-key we can't confirm it's about what we're saying and the effect we're having, but for now, I'm really, benefit of the doubt, we got swept up in a well-intended purge that really was supposed to like make the platform more responsible and more straightforward. And hopefully, if that's the case, then they will see that that's not what we're actually doing, and they'll give us the page back. But I'm not going to hold my breath.
Yeah, I don't blame you. You know, I've talked to a few other people. You know, they've said that even whenever they try to make backups or something like that, that they kind of get threatened with, well, if you come back and try to make a page, you know, they'll block you, or they'll permanently block you, or stuff like that. I think that's crazy that they appointed you a liaison. Would you mind going into a little bit more detail about that?
I don't really have much more than that, because I'm not the one in touch with the FBI. I've been typing it out so long, the Facebook group, and I'm not in touch with that person. That's Nick Burnaby, who's our founder, and he runs our Facebook page, and he runs our social media. And so he was the point of contact for this person. And basically, I mean, I remember he had a call with this person, maybe, I believe it was last month, and we were sort of under the impression that, like, hey, maybe they can help us improve the algorithms, because they had even given us a notice saying, like, hey, we've noticed your reach is down. And we're like, oh, really? You don't say? Really? We've known this for a long time. We've been trying to fight all of your algorithms. Oh, cool. Thanks for noticing. And that was sort of like their intro to a pitch for us to purchase exposure, I guess. So I'm not the one who had the phone call, so I don't want to speak on it, but I remember when Nick got off the phone last month, I asked, and he was kind of like, maybe. And that they had given me, actually, on my public, I want to be super specific here, on my public page for Carrie Wetler. So I have a personal Facebook account that I've had like since high school or after high school. That's just my personal account. And then I have a public page under the name Carrie Wetler, which has been shared by Anti-Media, but they're two separate pages. And that wasn't banned. So I wasn't banned from there. I still have that page. And they gave me the ability to monetize my videos there around the same time last month. I think it was September. It must have been September. Yeah. And at the same time, they were also working with Anti-Media. So we were able to get in touch with that person after we were taken off, and we're told, like, they're working on it. Basically, we heard today, they had told us, like, okay, we'll fast track your appeal, or at least, like, we'll make sure it gets attention. And we hadn't heard anything. We'd emailed again this week, and then we heard back today that essentially, like, it was a non-answer, but it was nice to get a response, because I was like, oh man, we got ghosted. Like, our rep ghosted us, it's over. But it was good to, just get a response. So they're aware of it. We're just hoping that we do get something back. But something I think, if I can pivot slightly, I think is more concerning is that just hours after we were taken off Facebook, we were removed from Twitter. And I was suspended from Twitter, my personal account, which is just absurd because I barely even use Twitter. Yeah, the coordination, exactly. And I don't know that that's been covered much at all in the mainstream. So when I first found out, this was Thursday, so almost a week ago, I thought it was like a glitch or something, because Facebook is pretty glitchy, especially for publishers. And I was telling Nick, like, I'm not worried. I'm sure we're going to get it back. It's fine. And then as the day went on, and I saw how many other pages were unpublished, and then I saw an LA Times article and a USA Today article about it. The way it was framed was just like, well, they're getting rid of spam political pages that are they're posting political opinions for profit, and something ad farms, and I don't even fully understand what they're saying. It sounds like word salad to me, honestly.
They call it inauthentic behavior. And I was reading some of the articles and the posts that are out there about it. It's the same thing that I do. There's all kinds of different groups that are out there. You post on your main page, and then you use your main page to send all of your other articles or your posts out there on Facebook to these different groups. It's not inauthentic behavior. It's not spam. You're just utilizing the platforms that are there. Like, it's crazy how they try to just
information
word
sharing
things.
Platform. Yeah, exactly. And
it's like you're doing the thing that it's intended for.
Exactly. And it was, it was just a little upsetting and disturbing, of course, that the way the story was framed by the mainstream outlets that did cover it, it was sort of just like, oh, don't worry about it. They're cleaning house like they were supposed to. And to the Guardian's credit, they did put out an article at least voicing the opposition's opinion, which is like, we're not doing what they say they're doing, at least some of the pages. I'm sure some of the pages are. I believe that, Like, I don't think that they just wrongly or unethically removed I don't think every single page was innocent. I'm sure that there were pages that were violating the policies in some way. I don't think that was us. But when it comes to Twitter, just, as an update, thank you very much. When it comes to Twitter, so they removed my account. They didn't give me a reason. It literally says this. I don't know if you saw my Instagram story, or it's posted on my Instagram as well. It literally just says, your account has been suspended. You violated the rules specifically for, and then blank, nothing. They didn't give me a specific reason. And they did the same. They suspended the account of our creative executive, who's also one of the founders, and he had some backup accounts, all suspended. And then our lady who does Twitter for us also had several accounts, all suspended. And our writers weren't suspended. And, for example, Free Thought Project was suspended, but none of their actual people were. So this was specific to us. And we've heard back on 2 of the accounts that our creative executive had, and they're both just permanently gone. So we've appealed all of them, and the 2 we've heard back on they're gone. And the one that we heard back on today, they said he had retweeted like one thing on it, and that's it. And the justification they gave was you use the account to manage multiple profiles and engage in abusive behavior. But they don't say what the abusive behavior is, and it's impossible because all he did was retweet a story, and it was like a mainstream story. He said it was like the Manchester bombing last year. All he did was retweet it. So I don't know. I'm not really following to get my Twitter back.
I just want to jump on that real quick. It's crazy that you mentioned specifically the Manchester bombing, because that was back in like 2015, 2016, right?
I think it was early 2017. I think
it had to be sometime super recent, because it may have been 2017, because I remember posting about the Manchester bombing with Ariana Grande. I remember posting some stuff that had conspiratorial hints to it, about it being a false flag. And that's whenever they took down my very first Facebook page. Like, I'm on my second Facebook page. I don't really talk about it.
Oh, really?
But, we lost the page, and then we came back up to this. But I think it's crazy that you're mentioning that specific event, because that's what cost me my page. Interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting. And to my knowledge, it wasn't anything that was even controversial. Like, I think it was just reposting what happened. Knowing our creative executive, I don't know what it was, because it was so long ago. And like I said, I don't even use Twitter, so I couldn't say. But yeah, this has been a long time coming. We saw this happening. There's so many parts of the story. We saw this coming after the election, really. And what's frustrating, too, is that long before the election and before the fake news narrative, we at Anti-Media were getting really serious about being responsible with the way we reported information, and not using clickbait, and not being sensational, and making sure that we had legitimate sources. Like, we didn't do this because we thought a crackdown was coming. We did this because we care. We actually are interested in informing people and not misleading them and not fear-mongering them and not manipulating and playing off their emotions in order to get clicks. This is something that we did because it matters to us. And then after the election, the fake news narrative came up, and there was that Prop or Not list. I don't know if you're familiar with that. There was a Washington Post story that cited an anonymous news organization, or not news organization, just an anonymous group of alleged researchers. And they claimed that there were people who were either intentional propagandists or useful idiots for Russia. And we were on that list. And so was Free Thought Project, and so were several others. And, I thought at first, like, okay,
I remember that.
Here. Yeah, and it was great. Glenn Greenwald and an awesome Rolling Stone reporter. I always butcher his last name. It's like Matt Taibbi. He's one of my favorite journalists. I should really know how to say his last name, but they both came out and really condemned the piece, and the Post had to issue like a half-hearted, like, well, it's anonymous, oops, like a much later after the article was published.
We kind of feel bad, but not really.
Yeah, we're going to put a note here, but the damage has already been done, so we don't really care, basically. And I was, that's definitely, we were on that list, and we were some of the pages that were taken down, but at the same time, there were other outlets on that list that weren't taken down. But very rudely, this organization, Prop or Not, was like gloating over the weekend on Twitter that we got removed, and calling us Russian propagandists, and saying that like Russia's very mad that their propaganda fronts got taken down, and they tagged like our suspended accounts. Like,
I think this is very
I don't know. Yeah.
I think it's very dangerous, the fact that they're just trying to blanket all this kind of craziness, which is saying it's Russian bots, it's Russian bots, it's Russian bots. It's more of that hysteria to where there's no discernment, there's no actual logic, there's no actual reason. They're just kind of blanketing things and not really actually putting, I guess, like someone to help. I guess that's why I'm curious about the liaison. You would think that there would be some kind of communication of why, an operation like your guys' the size that it had, or the size of your guys' operation, you would think that there would be some kind of coordination to make sure there wasn't inauthentic behavior, or to make sure that there wasn't some kind of problem.
Right. Or that we'd get a warning, like if there would be some sort of like, hey guys, you can't do that, like we didn't get anything like that. And I don't. Oh, go ahead.
Were there any strikes or anything like that before? Had you guys been hit with we're going to unpublish your page, or we're going to remove content? Like, was there any kind of thing like that happening to you regularly?
No, nothing like that. I mean, I can't speak from first person because I don't manage our social media, but according to Nick, no. And I trust Nick, and we've been super careful about these things. I was actually just watching an interview that Nick did, and he said, at least for the last 2 years, there's been nothing, because we have been so extra careful about our Facebook, because we saw the crackdowns coming, and this exact type of thing. I just really didn't think that we would be hit so hard so quickly. You know, maybe like a suspension, maybe, but I mean, straight up just unpublished, you're gone. It's all been very, you know, first I had like this adrenaline. First I was like, it's not a big deal. Then I had this adrenaline rush because I was like, oh, hell no, we got, you know, and now it's just like, oh, it's settling in, because so far nothing's changed. Yeah, man, whoa, we just spent 4 years like working our asses off, and it may just be over. And we have options. We can talk about some of the solutions, but as far as it has been, as we know it, yeah.
It's just crazy. They make it seem as if, like you said, you know, an anonymous group of researchers. Okay, but as if you know, putting out content like that is bad. Like, okay, us coming together, having like an organization. Like, I'm sorry, we didn't use your profile for what it was designed to do, so we could share cat videos and what we ate. We actually figured out how to use something like this for actual communication, and now they think it's detrimental. I don't understand like the logic behind that, and it's just it shouldn't. It seems like it's going to be demeaning. It seems like it's a hit or like a very critical blow. But you got to think, this is just more affirmation of like how powerful you guys really are. The amount of work that you guys really do have.
I do like to think that, and in a perfect world, I hope that that would be really nice. I hope that's the case, you know. And there was a time where we were reaching so many people. I was listening, according to Nick, this is Nick Burnaby, who's awesome. If you don't know who he is, look him up. He's I call him a visionary. I really think so. He's influenced a lot of my thinking over the years, and I'm so grateful that I've gotten to work with him, and I hope that we continue to work together. But he said that, you know, a couple years ago when we were at our peak, we were reaching like 70 million people a week. And he said now he checks in like it's a good week if we've reached 2 million people. You know, so things have really changed.
Wow.
And, you know, is it just the computer algorithms? Is it something intentional? We don't know. And I think we have to be so careful about the way we frame this, because I don't want to respond to claims of, you know, fake news and sensationalism by, you know, just putting out stuff I can't confirm. But the circumstances and the, you know, thing, we can talk about the Atlantic Council if you want. I think that is something that really needs to be discussed and put in context of the whole ban. But again, I want to preface everything I say, every, you know, speculation I make with, like, I can't confirm it. And something I pride myself on as a journalist and as an activist is I don't say things that I can't confirm. And if I can't confirm them, I make it clear that I can't confirm them. Something that's really bothered me in independent media is, like, this air of certainty on things that cannot be confirmed. I don't like that. And it's something, you know, I've been speaking out a lot about integrity and credibility and responsibility in independent media. There's a speech on my YouTube channel about that I made at the Anarchapulco conference earlier this year, talking about how independent media needs to clean up their act, like, and, you know, it hasn't really happened. I hope it does, but I mean,
this is what you talked about before, though. It's about stepping into that role, actually taking on, like, the position of being in alternative media. Like, you're actually influencing people. Like, people are caring about the content that you're putting out. You're influencing other individuals. There's got to be some kind of verification, some kind of, like, process there, some filtration process to make sure people aren't being misled. I think we've all been through the process, you know, of seeing controlled opposition, of seeing misinformation campaigns, disinformation campaigns, however you want to put them. And that's why, you know, to a degree, we've come back saying, look, we don't want to be that. This is what we can prove. Here are the links. Here are the studies. Here's all the documents. We're just trying to put it together in a coherent fashion so people understand it. And I guess that's why it's so dangerous that people don't get it. We're already doing so much research and so much work and so much distillation, and then for them to kind of just try to erase the ability to even share that. That's dangerous. We're just trying to explain information, and because we are having so many people that are out there doing this amount of work in this kind of different way, people don't understand, like, how eventually that's going to affect them. People expect to have alternative opinions in places like your own to go and to get differing opinions. But if they keep systematically chomping away at them, people don't understand how eventually you're just going to get tired and accept the mainstream narrative. That's dangerous.
Completely. And, you know, it's also like it's difficult because the average person who follows anti-media I don't blame them. They're not going to our page every day. Like, they're not seeking out the information. It's like they liked the page, they followed it, so it would show up in their feed. Like, they may not notice that we're gone even, you know, and I'm not saying that that's a bad thing. Like, I don't blame people for not wanting to like read the news and be informed with all the horrible things going on in the world all the time. Like, I advise you to not do that. Like, it's really depressing, but the average person, you know, like, may not even know that we're gone because we can't post about it on Facebook or Twitter. So it's not like they would see it from us. So we're really relying on, we've gotten so much support from so many other pages, and Ben Swan made a video about it. And there have been some other outlets that have, you know, made a big deal about it and given us voice. And I'm really appreciative of that. And just one thing as far as, you know, being responsible as independent media that I just want to add on is, like, I don't want to sound like I'm on some high horse so I can putting myself on a pedestal, because the only reason that I care so much about this is because I've made my own mistakes. And I remember when I first, you know, started caring before anti-media ever even existed. It was 2011. It was like Occupy Wall Street times. And I was sharing information from like prisonplanet.com, and I had no clue what it even was. I just assumed it was true, you know, and I've had many experiences like that, you know, in my own reporting, where like I got called out by a professor once because I like not intentionally, but I accidentally like misinterpreted information from one of his studies. And I, not even having any clue, I like emailed him and was like, hey, can I ask you some questions? And he wrote me back like this scathing email, just like insulting me and like basically saying I had no credibility. And like that really affected me, because I care so much about informing people, and like being called out like that and making my own mistakes. Like, that's why I care. Like, I didn't come into this knowing everything. I still don't know everything. And I know that I talk like a really big game about credibility and being responsible, but I just want to put it out there that the only reason I have such a strong perspective on that and such a strong stance is that I've certainly messed up myself, and I will continue to make mistakes, and I will correct them and be, you know, take responsibility for it. I just want to like make sure I'm clear on that, because I feel like sometimes I sound like kind of like about it, but I just want to be clear that there's a reason for it.
Failure is your best teacher, is what it sounds like. Yeah. Totally.
Yeah. Those are my best learning experiences.
I hear you. You know, I'll say this, and then we'll pivot to the Atlantic Council. You know, I lost 4 years of work over there on YouTube whenever we were talking about David Hogg and some of the shootings that were taking place around that same time frame. Boom, 4 years worth of YouTube content gone. You know, you don't really think about it right off the bat because you're so used to just like putting stuff out there and getting the work done. You're just trying to do it, and it doesn't really hit you until later on. But I totally hear you. You know, you get to this mindset to where you're like, God, you don't see the improvement of your work. You just see yourself growing and doing better every single day and how you're doing it. So I definitely understand what you're talking about. And that's kind of what comes with this. You know, you realize that as you've grown, you step more into that responsible media role. You step more into being authentic, sophisticated, and just genuine in how you're trying to do it. You're not trying to mislead people. You're not trying to do anything based in deception. It's just growth. Now, you had mentioned this earlier. I think it's important that we talk about this. The Atlantic Council. Yeah. It's an American think tank in the field of international affairs. It was founded in 1961. It provides a forum for international political business and intellectual leaders. It manages 10 regional centers and functional programs related to international security and global economic prosperity. Now, you wanted to bring them up because you think and they actually are, they're involved with the censorship. If you could, please go into a little bit more about it.
Yes, sure. So, and just to tack on to that last little bit, I just want to say, like, I'm so much less certain about everything than I was when I first started, and I think that, like, that's a good thing. Anyway, so getting into that, things I can verify. I have opened Facebook's press release from May when they announced that they were going to be partnering with the Atlantic Council, and let me just find. Oh, actually, this is wonderful. First sentence, Facebook is investing heavily to prevent our service from being abused during elections. We're doubling the number of people who work on safety and security and using technology like artificial intelligence to more effectively block fake accounts, the source of many bad ads and a lot of misinformation, which is exactly what they're saying in their press release from last week with the purge. Let's see, let me scroll down a little bit. So today we're excited, and this was May 17th of this year. Today, we're excited to launch a new partnership with the Atlantic Council, which has a stellar reputation looking at innovative solutions to hard problems, emphasis mine. Experts from their digital forensic research lab will work closely with our security, policy, and product teams to get Facebook real-time insights and updates on emerging threats and disinformation campaigns from around the world. This will help us increase the number of eyes and ears we have working to spot potential abuse on our service, enabling us to more effectively identify gaps in our systems, preempt obstacles, and ensure that Facebook plays a positive role during elections all around the world. Yeah, so here's another statement. This will allow us, so basically say, Facebook will also use Atlantic Council's digital research unit monitoring missions during elections and other highly sensitive moments. This will allow us to focus on a particular geographic area, monitoring for misinformation and foreign interference, and also working to help educate citizens as well as civil society. So I'm going to switch tabs over to the people who run the Atlantic Council. And to clarify, these aren't the people who are on this digital data unit. So I'm not saying that they're directly influencing the decision, but Board of Directors of the Atlantic Council. We have James L. Jones, who used to work for the Obama administration. Forgive me, I'm letting his little bio load. Let's see what he did. He has spent his life serving and protecting America and American ideals. He's the former commander of U.S. European Command and Supreme Allied Commander Europe. He led all military operations for NATO, and later, as National Security Advisor, he brought clear vision and steady leadership to America's mission in Iraq, the war in Afghanistan, and the country's interests around the world. You tell me how the war in Iraq and Afghanistan has gone. So this is somebody who's very, very entrenched. This is the interim chairman, and I'm just going to read some names off of their board of directors. We got Henry Kissinger. We got Condoleezza Rice. We got Colin Powell. We got H.R. McMaster. We got, actually, let me make sure. She might be an honorary director. Let's see. Where's Condi? I think, no, she's an honorary director. So let me skip down to honorary directors. We got James Baker, Ashton Carter, Robert Gates, Leon Panetta, Colin Powell, Condoleezza Rice, and then on the actual directors, we've got Kissinger, we've got Judith Miller. If you recall, she's the journalist who was spewing the government's propaganda about the Iraq War for the New York Times. Let's see. So basically, it's just a board of a bunch of highly influential establishment figures. And again, they're not on the digital data unit task force or whatever, but I mean, this is an institution that is so clearly linked to government and the levers of power. I mean, it's absolutely undeniable. And this is who Facebook chose to help guide them. So I think that's something absolutely worth talking about. And it's allegedly for the things that they're now allegedly singling us out for doing, which we didn't do. And we don't have access to their internal communications. We don't know what they're saying. It's difficult to make any clear, dot connections. But I don't feel comfortable having these people influencing a private platform, because these are people from the public sector, and there's, oh my gosh, the people who fund them. I mean, there's just a bunch of massive corporations. There's defense contractors. There's the U.S. Navy or Army Reserves. I mean, I can go to the support page. I had it open a couple days ago, and my jaw was just dropping because I looked at the directors, but I hadn't looked at the actual funding they get, and it's just every establishment entity you can think of.
Yeah, you can look at the funding right now. They got the Rockefeller Brothers Fund, Google, Foreign and Commonwealth Office of the United Kingdoms, Lockheed Martin, the Coca-Cola Company, Chevron, the Army, the Chamber of Commerce, the Marine Corps, Navy. Those are just a few of the people that fund these people, that fund the Atlantic Council. You can find them on their website. Like, these are people who are publicly funding. This is government basically funded censorship. That's the best way to describe it right there. There's no other way to say it. I mean, you have the United States Army funding the Atlantic Council, who's trying to push the censorship on you guys. You have Rockefeller Brothers Fund pushing censorship on you guys. That's crazy.
Yeah, and I don't think it's a coincidence. Again, I'm not certain, but I don't think it's a coincidence that this is happening right before the election. And, you have these companies like Twitter and Facebook that have been, the media and the establishment have just slammed them so hard and blamed them for Donald Trump being elected. So it's really not surprising that they're trying to take action now, so they can say, look, we did something. We're taking responsibility for what goes on our platforms. So, I mean, I wasn't expecting it, but I'm certainly not surprised. It's like that meme, like disappointed but not surprised. So here we are.
I definitely want to get into the NPC meme stuff with you here shortly, but I think it's important that we talk about, this pre-election chaos. I'm trying to figure out, again, what is so, obviously we understand the reason behind why they have an issue with us coming together using these kinds of platforms for enlightenment and education and awareness rather than just enslavement and stupidity. But I guess it's crazy that we have to talk about the pre-election buildup. I don't really think a lot of people really cared a lot about politics prior to this, but it seems like with the censorship that's happening on social media, the response from mainstream media, from everything that's going on, they're hyping up the elections to be something bigger than I think they should be, and that's, to me, kind of that sends more of a signal than anything. What are your thoughts on that?
Completely. I think, and just, to talk about the way that words can lose their meaning and they can be so vague, like the way that they're using the term spam and abusive. The same thing. So I've been planning on making these videos on the election, and in my opinion, voting is useless. It's not something that's effective. It's to give you the illusion of choice. And now I'm sitting here and I'm like seriously considering, like, okay, well, they're announcing that they're going to start banning misinformation about voting day and elections. Like they'll remove information if it's not accurate. Is it possible that if I say your vote doesn't matter, are they going to remove it because they say it's fake news? Because they've been putting all these voter registration notices in my Facebook feed. Like, am I blaspheming the sacred ritual of voting by saying it doesn't matter? Is that going to count as being incorrect information because they're talking about what an important election it is? Like, I'd like to think not, obviously. Like, I think that sounds a little bit ridiculous, but we're to the point where I have to be like, wait, am I going to get flagged for this? Am I going to, offend some triggered voter who, like, is staking their life on this election and gets really mad at me and reports the video, and then I get my video removed, or, or I get, like, a strike, or I get a warning? Like, I don't know, and I know that sounds dramatic, and I know that sounds like, kind of that they're not going to do that, but I don't know anymore, and the way that they're pushing this election, it's just ridiculous to me. It's not going to change anything. You look at these people who don't do anything. They're not active in their communities. They mean well. They're doing, like, they think they're helping. I don't want to attack their intention. Sorry, I have another call coming in. I hope you can't hear it. Let me just
nope, you're good.
Pass this on. Okay, cool. Sorry. Yeah, I don't want to act like these people don't mean well, because they totally do, and they're scared, and it's a scary time in this country, regardless of your political beliefs, whether you support Donald Trump, whether you hate him, whether you're completely outside the system like we are. These are uncertain times. There's a lot of vitriol, there's a lot of division, and I understand why people are scared, and they've been told their entire lives that voting is going to help them, and voting is their voice, and voting gives them representation. And of course, I think that that's just absolute propaganda, so that they don't ever actually do anything to challenge the system. But I guess that's the point. And that's, a page like Anti-Media, we don't endorse voting. We don't endorse political candidates. So that's not something, in my opinion, we waste our time on. I think it's a waste of time and energy, and it's asking your masters to please, acknowledge your rights and take care of you when they have the worst track records ever in history of doing that. So
it shatters their delicate world. No, exactly. It shatters their world. It shatters their dream. It breaks their matrix. It's like, hey, look at these people informing people that sometimes that voting doesn't necessarily matter. I tell people you are more than welcome to exercise your right to go out and go vote. Right. But I don't think your political activism, if any at all, should end there. Even what we're doing right now, I don't necessarily think this is political, but because of the audience and the way that people interpret things, they'll see this as political. And that's where you have to think what political activism, your lifestyle kind of dictates where you'll end up. If you want to sit there and let these people, as you say before, your masters, that's basically how I see voting, just picking which master, is going to screw you over less. So you're going to get beat in the face. I said this the other day, voting is kind of like this. Do you want to have somebody help you out of the water and then stab you in the back, right? That's the Democrat. They'll smile in your face while they stab you in the back. They'll pull you out of the water. Or do you want the Republican who's not really going to give a crap if you do drown? They're just going to let you drown on your own. So you're kind of screwed either way.
That's either way. Yeah, exactly. And it's, I think it's just,
go ahead. Do something else. No, I'm just saying, you're going to put your faith in the system or do something else.
Exactly. Well, and that's the thing is people have been so conditioned into this false conflation of quote unquote doing something with voting. And like, I'm sorry to be blunt, but like doing nothing the entire year or the entire 4-year cycle or 2-year cycle and then going to a voting booth and like punching a hole or like tapping a screen and wearing an I voted sticker, like you're Ralph from The Simpsons. I'm helping. You're not helping. I'm sorry. You're not. Like, I know you need to. I know you think you are. Yeah, exactly. Like, and I know I get like pretty frustrated with this because I've been in that position and it's like I really am trying to shake people from this mentality. But at the end of the day, like I can't stress enough, like I know they mean well and it's not their fault. This is what we were taught. Like I have so many memories of sitting in public school and like doing my public school homework and like taking a civics class and like this is pounded into our brains. Like we are free because we have a quote unquote representative government and that's how you make change. If you don't like it, you vote somebody out. I mean, look at the posts on like this is like a fun trend on Facebook or Twitter where like police departments will post a picture of a weed vest and then they get trolled so hard because the page is like liberty memes. Like they just send their followers to the post and they'll call them out for doing it. And you see these police apologists and their answer is, if you don't like the laws change, like vote to change them. That's what you do. Because we allegedly, this mythical collective we, are mythically represented by these mythical kind-hearted politicians who actually like give two shits about what we care or care about or want. And it's all propaganda. And as long as we pay our taxes and as long as we don't care about the wars and we don't care about the encroachments on our civil liberties, then who cares? You know, the politicians are happy. What? Come on. Like, Facebook actually cares about making a real change. I'm sorry, they don't. There's a story came out from The Intercept that they were deleting pages at the request of governments, like the Israeli government. They don't care about the things we care about. They don't care about the real things that drive power and the way authority is structured in this country and in the world. They just don't. I'm sorry. Like, they can give lip service all they want, and they might even believe it. I benefit of the doubt they believe it. They think that, like, by supporting Democrats or whoever they're supporting, they're doing something. I don't like to assume the worst in people. I really, really don't. I think they actually mean well. There are people at Facebook who mean well. They're not all just like satanic hacks, like out to enslave the world. I really don't think that, but the effect is the same. So here we are.
Well, it's Big Brother on steroids. You know, I think you kind of you touched on this earlier before, and I don't know if this is kind of what you meant, but you know, you said these people aren't ready, right? They're not ready for, like, I guess some of the content that you guys are putting out every single day. I mean, I read it, I pay attention to it, I understand it, man, and I look forward to it because I'm trying to be informed and caught up on everything that's going on. But there are some people who aren't really ready for this type of or for this type of awareness, for this type of information flow. Like, they don't really see how all of this plays into, like, the paradigm shift that's taking place in our country, the socioeconomic reformation that's taking place, you know. And so I guess what I'm trying to say, you know, is you're basically seeing how with Facebook, they're not appealing to a certain crowd of people, but they're trying to get a certain brand of people, a certain style of people off of their platform. It's like they don't want people who are going to buck the system. They don't want people who are going to, you know, say challenging things. They don't want people who are dropping little doses of reality on Facebook because they just want everything happy-go-lucky and nice on Facebook. They don't want things that can shatter their paradigm, that can question their reality, that can make people really break their matrix. And because that's exactly what I feel like is happening personally. I feel like they're trying to figure out a way to get people even more absorbed or enmeshed into Facebook, trying to appeal to it. Those kinds of synthetic people, those people who don't really understand what's going on, who don't really want to be informed. They just go there for content because it's what they're used to. And I get it. You know, sometimes I need to take a break from this and look at quotes that are motivational. Maybe see like a dolphin, you know, jump out of like a water or something like that, or see my friends having a good time. And so I can get why they would want to do that, but people, I think, should have the ability to choose to follow you guys. I mean, you're not out there telling people to do anything else. They have the ability to hit that like button and to hit that unfollow button if they choose. But I feel like the minute that we allow these... please, do us a favor, right? Please. People should have the ability to do that, but when these technocratic organizations start overreaching and trying to manipulate the mentality of people, that's whenever I have to kind of, you know, scream at people, what's going on? You're playing stupid whenever you can see all these other things happening. We have to try to figure out a way to raise more awareness about other alternatives. It's crazy. It's wild.
Right, and something that's also really concerning that actually kind of flew under my radar until this week. I think this story came out last week. I'm not positive, but I didn't even know this. And this is, so I was talking about how they say they're going to ban like misinformation on elections, and this was in a Reuters article. And in that same article, let me get the date on it. I'm pulling it up right now. This was October 15th, actually, so it was early this week. And in the article, a little bit further down, it gets really creepy. So I'm just going to read from the article. Facebook executives are also debating whether to follow Twitter Inc.'s recent policy change to ban posts linking to hacked material. And this is from their head of cybersecurity. Before I get into the discussion on hacked material, their head of cybersecurity is named Nathaniel Gleicher, and this is from his LinkedIn, so this is straight from him. He has taught computer programming, built and secured computer networks, prosecuted cybercrime at the U.S. Department of Justice, and served as Director for Cybersecurity Policy at the National Security Council in the White House. The NSC, he developed U.S. government policy on key technology and cybersecurity challenges, including encryption, cyber deterrence, internet governance, and network security. So now he's at Facebook. So here we have this nice little revolving door. And they're talking about removing hacked information. So we're talking about, I mean, the next paragraph in the Reuters article is the dissemination of hacked emails from Democratic Party officials likely played a role in tipping the 2016 presidential election to Trump. So I'm wondering, I didn't even know that Twitter had instituted this policy. I learned this, it's buried, like 10 paragraphs into this Reuters article about election misinformation. And Facebook's considering it. And I'm wondering, would Chelsea Manning's collateral murder video leaked through WikiLeaks back in 2010 or whenever that came out, would that be kicked off of Twitter now? The video of U.S. soldiers shooting at journalists, would that just not be allowed because it was obtained through hacking? Would Edward Snowden's leaks, not be allowed? I mean, I don't know if that counts as hacked material. It's certainly leaked material. And the thread seems to be, obtained without permission, which, is terrifying because so much of fighting back against government oppression is rejecting their fundamental authority to take action to inform people. And it's really scary that they're just saying, nope, not allowed anymore. You can't have this information. You can't share it. So this is something that's really concerning. It hasn't been talked about much. I'd write an article on it, but nobody would see it. So I'm talking about it here.
Well, I'll make sure our audience gets it, and that's, I don't know if there's anything I can try to make sure that I get across is your work has always been appreciated. What you guys are doing over there, we've seen it. That's all I can really say. If I could get your opinion on something, do you think, because they keep trying to reference to election information, hacked information, the Russians, do you think there is a small chance that we were exposed to some insider information that does have validity, and because it did cause all this kind of social disruption, they kind of like a bait and switch are using it to employ all the censorship that you see right now?
To clarify, are you asking if there actually were, if I think there actually were Russian efforts? Or what are you, I want to make sure I understand the question.
Not Russian specifically, but I guess for me, I'd say pedogate information, spirit cooking and stuff like that was information actually leaked out to the public that shouldn't have been, with organizations like WikiLeaks that did cause all this social disruption that they're trying to kind of dial back these days.
I mean, I don't think any of that was ever intended to get out to the public. And, I'm not completely sold on, I know there's some weird stuff going on. I won't deny that there's some weird stuff in those emails as far as, the pizza stuff and the spirit cooking. But, even just Hillary Clinton having knowledge of the Saudis funding ISIS and supporting ISIS, we weren't supposed to see that, And, it's, first of all, I have no idea how they could be have so little security on her information. That's just mind-blowing. Of course, it's government and politics, so I guess I'm not surprised, but I don't think we were all supposed to have that information. And that's why WikiLeaks has been so important. And I have my opinions on Julian Assange, but the organization has been it's had historical implications. It's had huge effects. And this is when Obama was in office. This is before the election even. And it's, who cared then, right? Because Obama was like this utopian God leader who had given us just a perfect society according to people on the left. And we just all missed
That's what we were sold.
Everything was so good. Yeah, everything was so good under Obama. If only we could just have him back in office, we wouldn't have any problems. But I'm digressing just because I'm so frustrated with the system. But yeah, I mean, I don't think that information was supposed to get out. And the thing is, nobody ever denied its validity. I mean, of course, they demonized some of the stories that came out of it. But as far as like the actual emails being authentic, like I don't believe Hillary Clinton ever said that those were fake emails. To my knowledge, they never said that it wasn't real.
Yeah, that's a whole other dimension to. No, you're right. That's a whole other dimension to look at that people don't really observe. And now they're trying to roll her back out now too. So it's really wild. It's really wild the levels that they playing. They and to me, I think this is kind of like the interpretation behind this is have all these people get riled up on social media, have them go to kind of the social extremes, to things that aren't normal, to where they can team up with China, as you see them doing now, to deploy all of this social credit style system stuff that we see happening. It's even wild. You were talking about Julian Assange and WikiLeaks. To an average person like myself, stepping into all this type of stuff, before there was WikiLeaks, you have your guys' organizations. You have the Free Thought Project. You have the Minds Unleashed, Collective Evolution, the Anti-Media. You have these bastions of truth, as I would put you guys, who are out there, kicking tail, talking about all this type of stuff. And then you have organizations like WikiLeaks who are just confirming all the types of articles and content that you guys are putting out there with actual documents. So if you don't mind me asking, what are your thoughts on Julian Assange and WikiLeaks?
I'm so grateful to that organization and to Julian Assange for that's a risk you take. Like, we're doing what I think is important work, but people like Edward Snowden and Julian Assange put their own lives on the line, and they put their own well-being and livelihoods out there to give us information. And that takes serious courage. And these are people that I look up to and I view as heroes. We're all human beings. I think that Assange probably has his own issues going on. But I also think that he's been unjustly smeared and attacked. And I saw a documentary of him. It must have been on Netflix, and it was like several years ago. And he definitely struck me as somebody with an ego. But I feel you kind of have to have one to do what you do. Like to do something like that. And I think I'm not impressed that WikiLeaks hasn't had much to say about the Trump administration. Like I haven't seen any major leaks from them challenging Trump's power, which that's not cool with me. Like if you can hack the Democrats, you can probably hack the Republicans. Like I'd love to see, we're not even 2 years into the Trump administration. So I'm going to hold out hope that there will be things that come out.
Just to be fair, it needs to happen.
Yeah.
No,
I would love to see some incriminating stuff. Yeah. I'm not going to say it's not going to happen. I don't know. I would love for it to happen, and I'll be super excited if it does. Of course, we may not be able to share any of it if it's banned from these platforms, but I'm hoping that there will be more information that comes out. I know that there were some, this is where it gets so weird, and it's such like an alternate reality because, there are all these establishment attacks on Assange, and I'm sure there are legitimate points of criticism, like, I believe there were some stories that came out either earlier this year or last year that they had been in touch with, was it the Trump campaign? I don't want to say that with certainty. It's not true. Let me see. Really quick. Sorry, I'm just on my laptop Googling. Either way, it speaks to a broader point of, oh, wait, this is so weird. Yeah, they wanted, now I'm totally changing the subject, kind of. I guess WikiLeaks was in touch with somebody with the Trump campaign, maybe. And then the Senate wanted Assange to testify on Russia. So now they kind of want to use him to further their own agenda and their own narratives. But this is where it's so weird. And there's not
I
sure.
think that might have been some of the stuff they tried to push, saying Roger Stone had a connection with Julian Assange or WikiLeaks, and he might have been like a connection point between the Trump campaign before he left. I'm not sure, though.
Oh, here we go. So they were claiming that Donald Trump Jr. had been secretly corresponding with WikiLeaks, according to messages, allegedly. But, this is just the broader point. And this is, I was talking about how I'm so much less certain of everything the more I do this, the longer I do this. And this is a great example of that, is like this is true. I mean, I hate to like allude to Alex Jones, but it truly is like an info war. Like, there's so much conflicting information, there's so many different narratives, and there's so much propaganda that it does become difficult to discern what's real and what isn't. And that's why I'm such a stickler for like original documents and as much, you know, firsthand primary evidence as possible. But I just want to throw this out there because it's an awesome documentary, and it really, like, it blew my mind. I watched it. It came out around the election season. It's called Hypernormalization. I don't know. Maybe I mentioned it last time I was talking with you. But it's by a British documentary filmmaker. I think he leans left. But there's so much fascinating information in that documentary. It's like a 3-hour documentary, and it's basically about how those in power manipulate reality to the point where people, they're not even aware of the strings that are being pulled, and they create these literal, just like alternate realities that people think are the truth. And then they're making these political decisions based off complete lies and fabrications, but it's presented as fact and there's no questioning it. If you have a chance, to anybody listening, it's on YouTube. It's called Hypernormalization, and it is just, like, it'll blow your mind. My jaw was on the floor after I watched it, and I watched a lot of documentaries. Like, over the years, I've spent a lot of hours watching documentaries, and this one was absolutely just fascinating and so much great information in it. And it really, really makes you realize how little you know. And despite WikiLeaks, despite all of this information we have in the digital age, we still know so little about what's really going on behind closed doors.
I think I might have seen a trailer for that documentary where he's, I don't know if he compares it to like the Soviet Union, but he's like, you go to the job,
that's the one.
where you go to job, you do all this stuff, but really your main job is shopping, and then you don't really know what you're shopping for, you don't know what you're doing all this work for, and all the while you're doing this, you're being fed all this information that doesn't really involve you and that you can't really like figure out what to do with, and it's just a hyperization of being like paranoid and displaced. I think I might have seen like a trailer for it on Facebook because I had it saved because it was so crazy. You know, the British did the way that he just had the trailer for it. It was mind blowing, and it's true. You know, you're seeing people who are going about this. That's what's so wild about like where we're at right now. You were literally having organizations like your guys, the Free Thought Project, you know, 3.1 million followers taken out, boom, just like that. Entire organizations whose livelihoods are tied to this, gone like that. And because people don't understand that, we're so used to the censorship, it's become normalized. We've literally become desensitized to going over some kind of adversity. And that's crazy. We don't even know where it's from. We don't even know like what we're doing wrong. We're just trying to figure out like how to operate better, how to put out content, you know, how to even, apparently we're having a bigger effect than we are having, than we think, and that scares people. I think that's what's wild, is we're being conditioned, like some kind of Pavlovian conditioning, but we can't even see where that external stimuli is.
Exactly. And it's, you know, I was talking about this after the Alex Jones ban, because obviously I don't like Alex Jones. I think a lot of people got mad at me because I was like, dude, this is fake news. He has so many instances of horrible, like, no journalistic integrity, and and people got really mad at me for that. But at the same time, I wasn't supporting him getting removed. It was setting a really dangerous precedent. And I think that something that is so key in this, and that's happening here now, is that people are so intolerant of opposing views that, you know, that upset their fragile little balance in their minds of what they've been conditioned into, that they're fine with the censorship. And that's the scariest part. Like, yes, it's scary because companies have so much power, but the fact that there's like hardly any dissent against it, the only people really speaking out are the ones who support us. And that's awesome, and I'm so grateful for it. But like, people who are planning to vote for, you know, just vote blue or whatever, and they're all excited about this blue wave and saying it's the most important election in history again, like, they don't care about us. They're not worried about the free flow of information. We're their enemy. Like, if they were to look at what we post and the narratives that we've put forth, they would be very happy to see us go. And that's the scariest thing. It's like, I don't like Alex Jones. I really, I can't stress enough how much I don't like Alex Jones. But I don't think that the solution was just disappearing him off of social media, you know? And like, this is supposed to be sort of like a founding American value. Like, you can say controversial things. You can say things that people don't like. And I know we've already talked about the Atlantic Council, so I don't want to sit here and make like a big broad argument about how Facebook is like kind of a quasi-private company. That's my assessment. They are private, yes, but like they're so in bed with government in so many ways that like it's not as cut and dry and black and white as people, as the liberals are now saying, because they support the bans. Suddenly they love private property and private companies. It's just so skewed. The things people will do, you know, the mental gymnastics that people are engaging in to justify banning ideas they don't like and voting for people that are actually horrible sociopaths. I'm going to go off on a tangent because I'm just so frustrated, but there just seems to be a lot of cognitive dissonance all around.
Well, I definitely want to, if I could, I want to get your opinion on like what you think about what we consider the left, these liberals and these air quotes radicals. I want to get what your thought process is behind them kind of teaming up with government to push a lot of this authoritarianism. And I want to say that because speaking on Alex Jones and how people are kind of encouraging, the censorship and the deplatforming, I think everybody has their relationship with Alex Jones. He love him or hate him, he's done something for you, and I get that. Yeah. But we shouldn't be calling for somebody else to come up off of a platform. When you point a finger at somebody, realize you have 3 more, 4 more pointing right back at you. And if you don't take the time to realize what that is, you're basically saying, I'm waiting for my turn to be persecuted. And so I'm not out here saying anybody needs to be deplatformed. Everybody should have the right to say what they have to say, even if it is like hateful and kind of racy or even intolerant or what they would say as messed up these days. But that's why you have the ability to hit block, unfollow, report, or something else. You don't have to be subjected to these types of things. So I think the overreacting that we're seeing from these tech giants, from these oligarchs, it's crazy, and people don't really get, again, how we're just being desensitized to it, how it's just being normalized. And you had talked about this, and then we'll go to that question about the left and all this other stuff that's going on. You talked about how some people are actually cheering this on. Some people are actually saying, "Yay! I'm glad the Free Thought Project got taken down, or I'm glad the anti-media got taken down." I'm like, whoa. I remember posting about it because I put up like 6 different posts trying to like really crystallize and get it home to people. Like, look, this is real. This is massive. Yeah. And people were like, oh, well, they broke the rules. They broke the community guidelines. I'm like, you assholes. You don't understand how we don't even know what the community guidelines are. You don't understand how if these people are getting taken down, it's only a matter of time till we're taken down. And you're cheering this on? Oh my gosh, it's ridiculous. Yeah, it's scary, and this is such uncharted territory because in the past censorship has been so much more explicit. Like the government would just pass laws and institute policies. Like I have a video on my YouTube channel. If anyone's interested, I just broke down a little history of censorship in the United States, and I mean, they didn't try to pussyfoot around it like they're doing now. There's this weird fusion of private and public now with these huge platforms, testifying before Congress. And, they have the NSA has backdoors into private data with these companies. And, some of them were, I'm not super well versed on this, so I don't want to speak out of turn. But, some of these companies were made possible because of research. I think, well, maybe that's just Google, but they were research funded by the U.S. government. There's a very long trail of breadcrumbs that shows that they're very much, they're not completely private entities. And something that I think I really want to touch on that I've just been thinking about lately, I don't have a statement prepared on it, but what I've been realizing lately is so much of this is just a consequence of our programming into the belief in government and in this authority. We wouldn't be having this controversy if it weren't for the political debate and the political discourse, and because of this lust for power. If people I need to get my guy back in power. I want to have power. I want to be in control. I don't like the guy who's ruling over me right now, so I want to rule over somebody else. Because we don't talk about the weather. We don't talk about cats. We don't talk about food unless it's about how it's filled with pesticides and toxins. We're talking about things that are inherently political and that are problems because of the political system. So, yes, sure, fine. They're private companies. Okay, sure. You want to take me off? Fine. Do what you got to do. I will express my preference in the marketplace against that. But whatever you're going to do, fine. I can't stop them. There's nothing I can do to stop them. So I have to just make peace with that. But everything behind it is political, and it's because of the way that we're propagandized into participating into the system and to believing that it's legitimate. Because we're being. Again, this is under the assumption that it has something to do with their content, which they're claiming it doesn't. But let's just say the people who dislike what we're saying and who support the ban. Let's not say the tech companies that are removing us. Let's just say the people who support their removal. They're heavily influenced by their political beliefs, and that is very much the reason why they don't like us and why they oppose us. Yes. So no matter how much it's about it being a private company, the political system and the current paradigm, you can't deny that it's factoring in here. It's more that still authoritarianism to where people are just kind of, you know, like you said, loving the government, statism, to where they're just like, oh, these companies can do whatever they want. You know, they're not actually understanding like the fairness, the balance that actually has to be like required in like a free and open society. And I mean, I get it. You know, they can do whatever they want, but this is still why we have to compete. If there's no competition, if there's no actual contest for the ability to be involved in these types of things, what are we doing it for? You see? I don't know. And just another thing I kind of want to touch on too, you know, is people say, I really hate this stay woke phenomena, that whole thing behind it. But people don't understand how organizations like your own are the reason why they think they're woke. Okay, a lot of the people that have put together YouTube documentaries, videos, and all this other stuff, they really do go to organizations like you guys to kind of verify their information. Like it's really wild, just how people don't get what kind of a blow this means. And so again, I think it's wild that we're seeing people, you know, cheer on this kind of censorship. It's wild how, you know, this bait and switch is taking place. We're seeing them literally trying to manipulate society, manipulate the mind. You know, it's crazy. It's Big Brother on steroids. You're having George Orwell's 1984, to where they're telling you what you can and cannot think and see and hear, and what you're not able to perceive. It's wild. You know, and for people, I was looking this up while you were talking. For people who are curious, I'll put the link in the description bar. I found that documentary, the hyper-normalization documentary. It was put together by Vice Australia. They put it together October 21st, 2017. I'll put it in the link below so you guys can check it out. But it's a fascinating documentary.
Yeah, it's really good. And you know what's interesting is that this documentary filmmaker, he's made some like really interesting stuff. So I'm sure a lot of your audience, and you were familiar with Edward Bernays, who's like the father of modern American propaganda.
Oh, yeah.
Adam Curtis, yeah. So I think it was 2002. It was like the early 2000s. He made a documentary called The Century of the Self, and it's about like the founding of modern public relations and propaganda. And he goes into Edward Bernays, and this is like a BBC documentary. I mean, this is just like publicly accessible. And that's also what kind of like blows my mind here is like, you know, we're talking about how there's so much stuff that we don't know and we can't know because it's so hidden behind closed doors. But then you look at what's also just publicly available, and it's like, holy crap, if this is the stuff that's just readily available to us, what are they doing that we don't know about? Like the declassified CIA documents of all these really messed up programs and just like the war crimes, and like there's so many horrible things that are publicly available, but the mainstream reports on themselves, and like that's just out there. They're not even, imagine the things that are actively being hidden. I mean, it's horrifying. And that's why I don't even think that, and that's one of our principles at Anti-Media, is just like, what's out there is bad enough. Like, we don't need to rely on like poorly substantiated conspiracies. Like, the truth that even the mainstream is acknowledging is just atrocious. Like, we could just report on that and it would be bad enough. You know, we get the right angling on the story, and we don't bury the real thing 10 paragraphs deep like Reuters is doing, and it's bad enough. And I think the problem is, like, it's not that, I mean, to an extent it's that people don't have the information because of the way the mainstream packages their stories, but it's also just that they've been conditioned not to care. And, you know, we see this most evidently when it comes to U.S. foreign policy. Like, nobody cares anymore. And we're talking about people on the left who think they're part of the resistance, but, like, I don't hear anything about, like, there were no complaints. I think I did talk about this with you back in when we spoke. I think it was August, but it was end of August or early September. But, you know, with the NDAA getting signed, the big outrage in the left-wing media and among the, you know, just the knee-jerk Trump haters was that he didn't acknowledge John McCain because the bill was called the John McCain National Defense Authorization Act, and Donald Trump didn't even mention his name when he signed it. Don't forget the fact that they're funding military empire and people are dying because of your tax dollars, and the fact that like indefinite detention remains in the bill. None of that matters. They don't know. They don't care. It doesn't matter. It's that their feelings got hurt because some warmonger didn't get his due from some dumb president. Like, it's just, people have just, the narratives are so strong and so powerful, and it's not that the information isn't there, because it is. It's just that people just don't care.
Well, it's the diversion. It's how, you know, again, people won't hear about the Space Force being announced because it was Donald Trump announcing the Space Force. They won't hear about all the things Kanye talked about because it was Kanye talking about them. People won't hear things because of how the media manipulations work. It's crazy. You know, they will literally pick the most useless, point in an actual story and then just spam that home so people don't even actually dig into the article or look at what's going on.
Yeah.
And that's just, again, how people have been desensitized and controlled and programmed. You know, again, that's why we're here, is literally to try to break the matrix, give people little doses of reality, actually thinking about what's going on, like where your tax dollars are going, the country that you're living in. You know, we can't be a society heading towards automation. I think that's what's even more scary, is people are becoming, again, desensitized, used to this, and just kind of, you know, who really cares what's going on, right? You know, well, I'm just here for the ride. You know, if we go to war, we go to war. It was that orange guy's fault. You know, we're not really thinking about anything after that, and that's dangerous.
Yeah, it's, you know, and it's something I see. You know, the programming is so strong, and I was programmed. I get it, and you know, that's why I can see that people don't have bad intentions. They've just been really manipulated. Like, they actually have really good intentions, and they think that they're helping. They really do. Like, as much as I can laugh about it and I can make fun of them, I'm really frustrated right now. But like, they really do mean well, and I don't think that they're bad people. I think probably in their day-to-day lives, they're really decent people who love their families and like care about their neighbors and think that they're voting for really positive things, and they think that they're trying their best, you know. But the cognitive dissonance is just so strong, and they think they're being engaged, they think they're helping, but you really see the power of the programming where, like, I get mean comments all the time, right? Like on my YouTube channel and on my videos. And something that is so, like, something that blows my mind is, like, we're in the age of Donald Trump now. So if I criticize Donald Trump, I know, with guarantee, I would bet money on it without fail every single time. I get multiple comments calling me a libtard. You're a liberal. You're just a dumb liberal who's mad that Hillary Clinton didn't win. The video itself that they're commenting on can like straight up call out Democrats and the left, and it's so clear that I'm anti-government and that I don't support liberals, but I'll still get people. I mean, that's just like the knee-jerk reaction they have. Oh, she doesn't agree with me. She must be the person I hate. She must belong to that evil group that's really causing problems in this country.
She must be controlled opposition.
Yeah, I'm also part of like the Jewish world order. I really want to make a video making fun of that, but I feel like those are the kind of people that will kill me, so I'm not going to do that. But like, people are convinced that I'm either like a Rothschild or I'm a Hillary Clinton shill, or, you know, there's always got to be an ad hominem reason to not take what I'm saying seriously. And I get it, I'm triggering, you know, like, I'm sure if people don't know who I am from this conversation, I'm sure they can tell that I have very strong opinions, and I'm not always like the most compassionate when articulating them. And I'm really trying to be different on that. Like, I've certainly changed in my delivery in a lot of my videos, but like, even then I trigger people. It's just what it is. And anybody else saying what I say would do the same. And I am particularly triggering because of the way I talk, and I'm not going to change myself. That's who I am. But when it comes down to it, it's the ideas that upset people. And if I were saying what they wanted to hear, they'd love me. And the fact that I say things that upset their worldview and their internal narrative, I mean, and I'm not, the point isn't to talk about me and like, oh, feel bad for me that people are mean to me. It's just like, wow, you can really see how strong people's programming is when you see the way they react to conflicting information.
Well, that's why they say truth is treason in an empire of lies. You know, people don't want to be woken up from their deep slumber. That's why, you know, you can believe in the American dream. Yeah, well, you can believe in the American dream. All you have to do is be asleep, not pay attention. And that's where a lot of people are.
Exactly.
So to kind of pivot about programmed people and to talk about this type of stuff, what do you think about, this is something that we touched on as well, the last time you were on, this Antifa counter-revolution. It seems like more of their political rhetoric is stepping up. They're getting out there more. What do you think about Antifa being allowed to operate on social media while organizations like your own are being persecuted?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't want to make too many judgments about it because I don't know the internal workings of Facebook. You know, I think part of it is that they're not like making profit off of ads. I think that might be part of it. But as far as like violating terms of service and advocating violence, I mean, we don't do that. If we want to just talk about blanket or general or whatever violations of the company policies, they're far more guilty of that than we are. And if we're talking about fake news, there are plenty of organizations that are still up that use straight up disinformation, and they're fine. And they have ads on their websites, like they're making money. So again, like, I'd like to assume the best, and maybe it's just so bureaucratic at Facebook that like they don't, they're inept and they haven't been able to be super precise about the way they're conducting their purges and their bans. But yeah, I think there certainly is like this. There's this really powerful left-wing indignation, putting themselves on a pedestal type thing. Like they think that they really do have the moral high ground. And I know the right thinks that too, but the right's in power right now. So, that's bad enough as it is. But with the people who think they're conducting the opposition, and all they're looking for is more power, obviously, and again, maybe they're well-intended, but yeah, I think that people who promote violence as a solution to anything except self-defense, I think they're part of the problem. And we had one of our journalists get beat up and have his equipment destroyed by Antifa last, I guess it was last May of 2017. And I was pissed. Like I've been, fine, you want to oppose fascists, that's lovely and that's wonderful. I agree. And, I still don't think you're as bad as a fascist if you're not, advocating mass genocide and just like stormtroopers roaming the streets. But if you become a stormtrooper and you're totally fine with using violence and you don't know how to use words to communicate, that's kind of a problem. And I think that speaks to the Alex Jones ban. It speaks to what's happening with us right now. It's just people don't know how to communicate. They can't engage in civil debate. It's just not, this is gone. I don't know if it was ever there, but it's certainly deteriorated if it was.
Well, it's not in their programming. That's why whenever you actually try to have like a logical, factual, based conversation with people who are radicalized by these types of things, there's no coherence, there's no actual connection. You're trying to break down their programming live time, and because they're so used to operating in that modality, that shatters their worldview. And so I think that again, these are all very dangerous times to be in. You're seeing technocratic, authoritarian, totalitarian systems who aren't beholden to a specific government, who are literally squashing dissenting opinions, while at the same time you see domestic disobedience, civil unrest rising, and it's getting more attention. I think that's something that people don't really see kind of correlating, is we're literally seeing how our society is kind of being put on automation and being encouraged to move towards chaos. That's the only way I can explain.
Right, and totally. And I think that, even if somebody in Antifa has the best of intentions and they really think they're fighting fascism, sorry to break it to you, Betty, but if you want to go out and use violence in the streets, you are begging for more of a police state. And that's pretty fascist to me. You want more cops on the street, you want more funding, you want more military gear on them. Okay, keep throwing violent tantrums and see what happens, because they're going to have more law enforcement.
And that's what I guess that's what I really want to try to highlight whenever I look at a lot of these protests and these turn riots and these things that go on, because I get the protesting. I get trying to not necessarily overthrow a totalitarian government, but saying I don't agree with this, trying to resist. I think what we're seeing right now is some kind of crazy radicalized infiltration of this type of organization, to where they're going to bring forth the police state. They're going to bring forth the martial law. I had this in one of the notes for this week's episode, is all of this rise in violence because some cops in some areas of the country aren't dealing with this type of threat. That's going to create a rise in vigilantes. That's going to create a demand in people who are actually wanting peace and stability. And on top of that, then you're going to have whole different sections of cities and towns that are kind of gang run, that are run by these organizations, by Antifa, by whatever, by Sharia law areas, by BLM, by you name it, you see. But people don't understand how this kind of unchecked chaos, if not pointed out, how it's only going to flourish into full-blown disorder.
Yeah, and I think, something we talked about pretty extensively the last time I was on, which was a great conversation, by the way. Thank you for that. I had such a good time. Something we talked about was, it was about emotional discord and how people are really not okay at the individual level. And if you look at the rates of depression and anxiety and antidepressant use and benzodiazepine use, people really are not doing all right. And this has, in my opinion, very little to do with politics. But what we're seeing is a lot of this collective angst, this individual angst, being channeled into actual politics. So people are really just, and this was the case for me too. And I think maybe I did talk about it last time. I'll talk about it again. I was getting really, 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 really frustrated. And I was taking it all out on the external political world. And like, yeah, there is room for frustration, and it's understandable why we're angry and why people are upset at like the political world and the system. Like, it's so legitimate, and I totally understand that. But what I realized about myself and what I see in others is that we have all sorts of other stuff going on that are totally internal, that have to do with our personal experiences, our personal traumas. And what's happening is those things are then getting projected onto the political sphere and space. So like that really famous clip of that person, I don't know if it was a guy or a girl, but on inauguration day, like that person like screaming on her knees or his knees, like crying that Donald Trump was elected. Like, I'm sorry, sweetheart, there's other stuff going on there. This is not all Donald Trump. And there's a video of like, I've used these guys in my videos because they're so representative. There's like a guy, there's like this really like beefed up like Donald Trump supporter. He's like screaming and raging and like, again, sorry, man, that's not just like your love of America talking. Like, you got some daddy issues, maybe. I don't know. I'm not going to say what's going on, but like, we have other stuff going on, and it's really sad. Maybe mommy issues. I don't know. Maybe both. We probably both. Like, let's be real. But like,
no, but it's so true though. It's more that projection. We're literally seeing people like, I don't know if you saw some of those anti-Kavanaugh protests. It's like thousands of people who are just like screaming, banging on doors. I'm like, what is this? There's another video out there too where there's like a bunch of people who are basically repeating what this organizer's saying, like, meet me over here in 30 minutes. Meet me over here in 30 minutes. We will go this way. We will go this way. It's crazy because you're seeing all this insanity, this lunacy. You're seeing it legalized. You're seeing these mentally. I don't want to say all these people are mentally unstable or mentally ill, because that generalizes it. But you're seeing people who, as you're saying, who have genuine mental health issues, who do require attention, who are not being helped, who are only using politics and this current mass hysteria that we see going on. They're substituting it. They're projecting themselves onto it, and it's creating that much more of a chaos. We're being led by our emotions.
Yeah, and you know, and it's so validated because we have this victim culture, and I don't want to say like this is just the left, because you see it on the right too. Like, and I've been saying this since 2016. So much of Donald Trump's campaign was successful and predicated on the fact that, like, we're the victim. China's screwing us. Mexico's screwing us. Like, poor America, poor me. Like, we're getting the crap end of the deal. And, like, he got elected on this whole idea of, like, making Trump supporters feel extremely victimized. And they can laugh at snowflakes all they want, but I will happily argue any day that they are just as sensitive and just as triggerable. And, like, they got their own issues. Like, we're all human beings, and it's not easy to be a human being. It's really hard. We have a lot of feelings, and like, it's not easy to know how to process those. We're not taught that. We don't learn that in school. We learn how voting makes you free. Like, I think we'd all be much better off if we learned like emotional processing and awareness in fifth grade instead of learning the crap that we do. Like, and again, like, people feel so justified in it, and they're channeling so much of their angst, especially in this case because Trump is in power on the left. Like, I heard a story, so I'm part of like the yoga and meditation community here in LA, and there was a teacher saying that she's a meditation teacher, and she said the day after the election, like, people came to class ready to, like, they couldn't meditate. They were so devastated. They were so emotionally distraught that Donald Trump won. Like, they were in mourning. And it's like, dude, I get it. I wasn't happy about it either, but like, come on. Come on. People have to start taking responsibility for their feelings and for their lives. And I think that this is such an important theme, whether it's emotional responsibility or whether it's actual responsibility in your life. And we're talking about this, in my opinion, controlled opposition of voting. It's like, and what are you going to do? You're going to go to the voting booth, and then you can go back to your regular life, and you're not going to do anything that actually changes the system. I mean, a small percentage might volunteer, and they might, try to be active in their communities. And I applaud them, and I respect that so much. Even if they're going to vote, I completely disagree on a moral level and philosophical level. But if they're actually trying to do something, like, thank you, very good, appreciate it. But the truth is, the reality is that the vast majority will not. They will vote, and then they will go back to their sleepy little lives, and they'll have a tantrum when the TV tells them to, and they'll be mad about the things they're told to be mad about, and they'll never question it, and they'll never wonder where it came from. They'll never wonder where they got the idea that voting makes them free. It'll just be something that they engage in probably for their whole lives. And honestly, like, those people aren't my target audience. I don't have the energy for that. There are some really wonderful people who are great at that. That's not me. I like to go for people who have a chance, who are already aware that something is wrong on a holistic level, and I know that I think there's hope for everybody. I really do, save like the sociopaths and like the really crazy, violent people. Like I can't change their minds. I like to think I could change anybody's mind, but that's what's so sad about, to bring it full circle, that's what's so sad about this purge, is that we were reaching people that wanted that information. They sought it out. They saw something we posted and they went, hey, I like that. I'm going to like that page. I would like to see more from them. And that they're people who were open-minded enough to trust a source of information that wasn't the mainstream. And it was my goal and my dream to help in that process of helping them disconnect from that. And also, maybe it was a pipe dream, but to help them get the critical thinking skills they need to check an original source, to read the official government document and see for themselves. And I'm hoping that we get the page back. That'd be really, really cool. I'm not giving up hope yet, but if not, we'll find another way. We can't quit. People who do this, we're so motivated, and I'm not just speaking about myself. I'm speaking about like almost every single person I've come across in this activist community. Like, we don't do this for the attention. We don't do this for money. Clearly, we do this because we actually care, and I'm so grateful for that. For you, for all of these people. I can think of so many people right now who use their voices and who are out in the streets. They're on the internet. They're making content, and we're doing this for very sincere reasons. And I'm just grateful to be surrounded by people like that.
We're doing this.
Yeah, thing. It's happening.
It's happening. It's going live right now. Well, Carrie, I want to say thank you for coming on. It is always a pleasure having you. Before you leave, where can people find more of your work?
Well, my Twitter is suspended, so you can't go there right now. But if you were to go on Twitter, maybe my account will be back. It's at Carrie Wedler. It's CareyWedler. My YouTube is still active, so you can find me there. It's Carrie Elizabeth 824. That's the URL, because I made that channel long before I ever knew I'd be doing what I do. And you can find me on Facebook as well. I'm on Instagram too. I post video clips there and little snippets of my work. And I'm on Steemit. If you're on Steemit, that's a really cool platform. Just at Carrie Wedler. It's all Carrie Wedler. If you get confused, just Carrie, like care with a Y and then W, and you'll find me. I'm around.
Are you on Minds as well, or Real.video?
No, I've got to make an account on Minds, and I also have to get on BitChute. Anti-Media is on Minds. So Anti-Media is also on Steemit. We're on Twitter. No, we're not on Twitter. Darn it! No, we are not on Twitter. I'm so used to saying we are. No, we are not right now. But we're on Steemit. We're on Minds. We will likely be joining MeWe, which I don't know much about, but I think is worth looking into. And I do need to look into BitChute. I'm on DTube, which is the video platform for Steemit, which is blockchain-based. So, if anything good comes of this, it's that, more people are looking into different options, and that's pretty exciting, because that's kind of the goal.
I think so. And like I was telling you before, when we were setting the show up, believe it or not, you're a natural born leader. Wherever you're going to go, you're going to bring followers. You're already part of the change. Really, you're already helping more people than you think. So, like I said, Carrie, thank you for coming on. This is most certainly a pleasure. I can't wait to have you back on as soon as you start getting things going again.
Totally. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate you helping just get the word out and let people know what's going on.
The pleasure is mine, and we'll be in touch. Thank you for coming on.
Sounds good. Talk to you soon. Have a good night.
You as well. And there they go. Carrie Wedler of the Anti-Media. And that's why it's important. I truly did not think that I would find myself here talking about these types of things in the time frame that we are, having the kind of president that we even have. These days are most certainly interesting. I'm going to make sure to put all the links in the description bar below. Definitely support Carrie Wedler as well as the Anti-Media. We're trying to again establish a network. People have to understand the amount of work that we put in to not only providing you with articles, but shows like this to discuss these types of things. Really, people have to understand that this is a labor of love. So like I said, please make sure to go follow Carrie on Steemit, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. Oh, but she's not on Twitter. Maybe she's on Twitter. She might be on Twitter. YouTube, Minds.com. You can find the Anti-Media there as well. We've joined the Minds.com as well. And really, we have to start thinking in terms of this. what happens after Facebook, life after Facebook, life after Google, with all the censorship going on, with all the algorithms and everything going on. We have to start thinking and innovating. They are preying upon our patterns and our habit-forming nature as being humans. What we have to do is start innovating. And this is, again, why we have to have alternative media pieces who actually put out quality talking points and explain what's going on. We don't just want to be part of this system. We don't just want to be mindless drones going about their lives not thinking about these types of things. However, that's all I really have for you guys and gals. I would like to say thank you again to Carrie Wedler for coming on, and you, the audience, for being here, being a part of history. People don't even think about MySpace anymore. What happens when we get to the days where we don't even think about Facebook anymore? It is most certainly wild. But like I said, make sure you're checking out all the links in the description bar below. If you good folks have questions for me, I'll put my email in the description bar as well. And remember, guys and gals, stay vigilant, expose lies and share truth. This is Noise Era, Freedom Faction, and Carrie Wedler of the Anti-Media, out.
And you can't slow this train down. Again, I want to say thank you to Carrie Wedler for coming on. You know, this is always a pleasure talking with like-minded individuals in times like these. We have to bind together. We have to build together. We are all we have. And moments like this are monumental for history. It's what comes after that we're doing this for. Audience, thank you guys for tuning in. If this episode helped you, please share it with a friend. Don't worry, we already sound crazy enough for you. If you have any questions for me, I'll be sure to put my email in the description bar below. And as always, guys and gals, stay vigilant, expose lies and share truth. This is Noise Era, Freedom Faction, and Carrie Wedler of the Anti-Media, out.